Hello, and welcome to another episode of Northstar Talks Politics. I hope you folks are well, taking care of each other, and being kind to yourselves. Now, this is a bit of a weird combination of things, and this is something of a train of thought episode. Sometimes these do well on YouTube, and certainly it raises things I wanted to talk about. So I was traveling recently, and this is jumping off point. Like any good video, it's a story. I was traveling, and as I was staying in an Airbnb on my travels, I stayed at this place that was hosted by these two really religious people. And they had Bible verses up on the walls, and they put in the description, oh yeah, just so you know, we're really religious people, for anyone who wanted to stay there. Sweet people despite it all, but not because religious people can't be kind. In fact, the Bible calls on people to be kind, but because many, many people use religion as a cover for intolerance and cruelty. What Jesus would call the hypocrites, which he saw everywhere, and indeed were everywhere and still are. But they had left out, among other things, a Bible in the bedroom, opened conveniently to the parable of the Wicked Tenants. I'm sure, though, like many right-wing leaning religious people, they did not understand the real meaning of this parable. Heck, even the AI overview gives it to you short. Here is Bible Gateway version. Why does it have to do the Revised Standard Version? No. I'll give the version that they had, the English Standard Version, and actually the New International Version is actually better. But this would get the exact wording. Come on. Here we go. Matthew 21:33 to 46. All right, here another parable, blah, blah, blah. As this, the NIV version is better because this kind of awkward language was rarely used, though actually maybe it is the same in NIV. Let's check. Yeah, if you want to ever see the translations to stuff, yeah, listen to another parable. That's a closer translation. NIV is almost always more accurate, but the version they had out was an English Standard Version Bible, so yeah, even if you're not religious, you can point out how some religious people are misusing Bible phrases, so I recommend knowing this website. Here another parable. There was a master of a house who planted a vineyard and put a fence around it and dug a wine press, and in it built a tower and leased it to tenants and went into another country. Absentee landlord. When the season for the fruit drew near, he sent his servants to the tents to get his fruit. And the tents took his servants and beat one, killed another, and stoned another. Again he sent other servants, more than the first, and they did the same to them. Finally he sent his son to them, saying, they will respect my son. But when the tents saw the son, they said to themselves, this is the heir. Come, let us kill him, and have his inheritance. And they took him and threw him out of the vineyard and killed him. When therefore the owner of the vineyard comes, what will he do to those tents? They said to him, he will put those wretches to a miserable death, and let out the vineyard to other tenants who will give him the fruits of their seasons. So this is Jesus speaking. He's asking this of a crowd, possibly the Pharisees, who often lecture because they were hypocrites very often. That was the religious leaders of, don't forget, Jesus was Jewish, so Jewish religious leaders, because Christianity did not yet exist as a religion. So yeah, and it would have been awkward for it to have given the events. Jesus said to them, have you never read in the scriptures, the stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone? This was the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes. Asking if they've ever heard, that phrase, long COVID butchering wording a little bit. Used to be able to read some of these verses beautifully, people, when pointing out they were misunderstanding stuff, whatever, but trying to read anything off is awkward these days. Therefore I tell you, the kingdom of God will be taken away from you and given to a people producing its fruits. You, who is you here? Ponder it for a second. The one who falls in the stone will be broken to pieces, and when it falls on anyone, it will crush him. And the chief priests and the Pharisees heard his parables. Pharisees, like I was saying. They perceived that he was speaking about them. In part, yes, he was. And although they were seeking to arrest him, they feared the crowds because they held him to be a prophet. So, yeah, can't get rid of some of this nonsense. Oh, that's next. And this is, say the daughter of Zion, behold, your king has come to you humble. And yeah, when you read the part about the parable of the wedding feast and 7 was the scribes and Pharisees and all the surrounding verses, it becomes even more obvious what the and the labors in the vineyard. The parable of the tents becomes incredibly obvious. It's meaning basically this was actually a parable about the kingdom of Israel and or Judea, or Jews, broadly speaking, the chosen people of God, who had turned their back on prophet after prophet, and Jesus himself, who, he was predicting his own death in this parable. Partly he was pointing out that they would eventually kill him, just as they killed the son of the vineyard owner. The vineyard owner is God. This is one of the most blatant, in-your-face bits of religious parables in the Bible. Even the AI understands what it's about. And the Son is Jesus himself. It illustrates those who reject God's messengers, and even the Son will be held accountable, with the kingdom of God eventually being given to others who will produce fruit. Those, as I said, originally being the Jews, who were supposed to be chosen people. However, these right-wing religious people were just putting out because they probably thought, tenants, which it doesn't even make sense, since this way about tenants not paying the rent. This was an Airbnb. They already had their money when anyone came to stay there. So leaving something like that, not only a little bit passive-aggressive, it's not even applicable. They already have their money in advance. And since this was like somewhere only dude 1 to 5 night stays, it's not like they would have someone there for months and they might be getting money in pieces. No, they were absolutely just being clueless. A literalist understanding of this piece, which it's obviously metaphorical, more so than anything in the Bible, would have shown them that they were off their asses and that they need to worry about not getting their money. And anyone who has enough clue to realize this metaphor would ironically realize it was about Israel, which these are the sort of people who'd be like, oh, we misreport Israel even though they're murdering people. Yeah, that's those kind of people. Sweet, but completely clueless about politics and some of the comments they let drop. Instead, these are the sort of people who would support a literal rapist as president. This is the Wikipedia article on Donald Trump's many crimes against women. Rape, sexual assault, sexual harassment, including non-consensual kissing and groping of at least 25 women since the 1970s. Maybe not all the accusations are always true, but at least a large number of them probably are. And this is the guy that these evangelicals are worshipping, basically. A person who has, in civil courts at least, been convicted of sexual assault and rape, and has gone so far as to then commit defamation against those who won cases against them, like Eugene Carroll, who won a case against him for sexual assault. Then Donald Trump went about bad-mouthing her until she then won a case against him for bad-mouthing her for defamation, for, refusing to, just shut up and accept he'd done something wrong, and he's lucky not to be in jail. The United States Appeals Court upheld the jury's 83.3. These kind of things are often massive because, one, legal fees. Someone like Trump will extend out and inflate legal fees, so why that would just go to our lawyers. And two, it's supposed to be punitive to discourage someone who's insanely rich from doing something like this again. It has to be a really big penalty or they'll just keep doing it. So when you see something like this, it's not the person's being greedy. No, the jury awards these massive amounts of money specifically to discourage such behavior. Anyways, the United States Appeals Court upheld the jury's $83.3 million penalty against President Donald Trump on Monday, September 8th. This was in 2022 for defaming author Eugene Carroll, whom he was found to have sexually assaulted Carol, 81, alleged that Trump defamed her in 2019 when she first made assault allegations public by saying she, quote, she is, quote, not my type. In 2020, that's not the only thing he said. Why? They're cutting off. He accused her of making it up and a lot of other stuff and just constantly attacked her character. In 2023, another federal jury found Trump liable for sexually assaulting Carol in an apartment store dressing room in 1996, subsequently defaming her in 2022, and he called her a complete con job. Yep, Trump was not required to attend the trial or testify. However, he used the case to generate heated media coverage and to fuel his claims of being victimized as he campaigned for a return to the White House. While the district court did not err in any of the challenged rulings, the jury's duly rendered damage awards were reasonable in the light of the extraordinary and egregious facts of this case. Because he tried to appeal the ruling against him. Because of course he does. This is one way to drive up legal fees. We agree the jury was entitled to find that Trump would not stop defaming Carol unless he was subjected to a substantial financial penalty. Like I was saying. It's funny because I was just saying to someone that the legal system doesn't really exist to protect ordinary people, only billionaires. But of course, Trump is deeply threatening to a lot of billionaires even. So, yeah. I'm sure if he was a darling of the elites and he was not destabilizing the whole system and actually imperiling a lot of other elites, that he would have gone away with all this stuff. Unfortunately, a whole lot of powerful people do, but something that's more closely approximating justice for his victims occurred here simply because he rubbed some elites the wrong way. It's not that he's a victim. It's that he was not able to get off scot-free like rich people usually do for their crimes. So instead, that kind of shit happens, and I tried to vaguely hint at these people about long COVID, but of course they understand it. Right-wing sorts do not, broadly speaking. I was actually just talking with a roommate today about, he was trying to say, oh, your health is bad because you're fussy about your health. It's like, no, you don't freaking know anything you're talking about. I have long COVID because I was infected with COVID twice. In both cases, living in close quarters with someone with a positive COVID test, unable to leave the situation, having contact with no one else, kind of a quarantine type situation. One situation, literally a quarantine situation, whereas I, healthy person who may have already been exposed, was being quarantined with someone who definitely had COVID. And the other case, I was caring for someone who was self-quarantining, who I did not want to be in that situation, but I was forced into that situation. And yeah, either way, it was very clear that who I got COVID from, that I got COVID, and the drastic decrease in my functioning after my second COVID infection, and actually temporarily after my first, although I fully recovered after about 3 months, was extremely obvious, extremely well documented. And yet, despite these facts, you still get people who say, oh, just because you're fussy. Meanwhile, they go around not being careful with COVID, spreading it because they won't get vaccinated, they won't wash their hands, they won't listen to the experts, they won't mask up when appropriate, etc. Or they won't get their booster shots even if they got the original vaccine. And so then this plays right into U.S. adults reinfected with SARS-CoV-2 may be a 35% greater risk for long COVID than those with one-time infections. A team by the independent research institute RTI International posted last week on the preprint server medRxiv for the observational non-peer-reviewed. Say not peer-reviewed yet. Most likely this will be later peer-reviewed. In fact, 2 months. Peer review can take a long time. I participated in it myself as a scientist, both on the end of writing stuff that end up having to go through peer review and as being a reviewer. I've done both. It takes a long time. So they're probably getting things peer reviewed right now, and this will be peer reviewed in the future. And observational course, because it wouldn't be ethical to intentionally infect people with SARS-CoV-2, i.e. COVID, multiple times to see if their risk of long COVID went up. That would be the alternative to an observational state would be to intentionally infect people. So yeah, observational. They're qualifying it that way, but it's a necessary thing. And that's kind of the only way you can get this kind of data. Investigators examined the electronic health records of the COVID-19 cohort of the National Clinical Collaborative, part of the Researching COVID to Enhance Recovery initiative, to create a matched cohort of 424,616 reinfected and uninfected controls. Yeah. By the way, matched cohorts. This is actually the kind of stuff that I studied when I was in graduate school, that I was finishing a program in, as well as a special master's program, when I got COVID for the second time and suddenly couldn't do the work anymore, couldn't think on that level anymore. But yeah, I used to be able to do design, at least for like classes, theoretical matched cohort studies, and well, I was actually doing research as well that was observational, that involved, was that matched cohort or study? It might have been, I think so. I may have actually been doing it at the time. My memory is a little, about that research at this point. It was a while ago. I haven't looked back at it. I mean, not allowed to legally retain the records after, although they probably should have been more assiduous in making sure I just manually deleted stuff, but they probably should have followed up to make sure I did delete certain things that, I made sure to obey the law on, but, I don't know. Information security is not the high point of these hospitals sometimes. For a while, there were certain things they were extremely careful about, and other things they were stupidly not cautious about. Anyways, the infected participants who came from 85 hospitals and hospital networks had COVID at least once between March 2020 and December 2023, and had an Omicron reinfection 60 or more days later between November 2021 and June 2024. The researchers also performed a sub-analysis based on 13 study sites with robust vaccination reporting to evaluate the effective vaccination status and reinfection rates of all COVID. Participants were stratified into one of four groups: unvaccinated before index date, vaccinated only before the first infection, vaccinated only before the first infection, only between the first infection index date, or vaccinated both before first infection and between first infection index date. Yeah. And this confirms what other studies have been showing, that vaccination protects against long COVID to some degree, although only more recent. So if you don't keep out the boosters, that protective effect, very weak to gone. The point I was making to my roommate, the point all of you should keep in mind and listen about, is that people need to listen to scientists, first of all. Like my very silly roommate who would rather believe that simple fussiness that causes my health to be bad, rather than, because I was lecturing him, he needed to wash his hands before eating some of my food that he has gotten in a habit of just taking after first I was sharing it with him. But if he's going to continue taking some of my food, which fine to share a little, but can't be doing it too much. I'm on food stamps. It's supposed to be money to feed me, not to feed RAM roommates who, of course, it's more than enough money, at least the way I budget. So I'm not about to run out, but I also can't, be breaking the law or anything. But anyways, this guy wasn't even washing his hands before sticking his hands right into a bag of peanuts, actually, that I was eating, because that's one of the foods I can eat some amount of with my IBS type symptoms without problems. A lot of nuts. There's some ones I can't, like I can't eat cashews, but I can eat peanuts, almonds. So I do, because I need the nutrition. I need the calories. I've actually been losing weight, getting closer and closer to being medically underweight. There's been some shenanigans with that. Maybe I'll talk about it later, with doctor's office that is measuring me an inch shorter than what other doctor's offices are measuring me at, and wondering if I was losing height, which I shouldn't be at my age, or if their scales are just off. And if their scales are off, is it intentional? Could they be trying to avoid having to treat people underweight? They seem to have a lot of very thin patients, or using it to be able to lecture fat people on losing weight earlier when they're not actually quite obese yet, because some people like to do that. I mean, doctors want to do that earlier before someone gets too heavy and it gets even more out of control. I don't know why, or if it was an accident, if it was on purpose. Unfortunately, a lot of things are accidental first, but they don't get corrected because they're beneficial for some reasons to their left in the medical system. And that's how a lot of the worst things in the system end up, and even small things like this, the way they are. But instead, we get people misusing this parable. We get people blaming others, like these particular individuals were also going on about, quote, Antifa, which isn't even an organization, which they would know if they were not brainwashed by right-wing propaganda, and certain religious leaders, hypocrites, traitors to the word of God, if you're a religious person. By the way, I am a socialist, and I am Christian. I refuse to cede the ground of what Jesus taught to the right-wing religious nutjobs. They are wrong. They do not go along with anything Jesus taught. They are the exact opposite of what he taught, in fact. And if anyone is sincere about their religious beliefs and on the left, they should absolutely be standing up to these fuckers instead of going about letting them think they're right all the time. Maybe, I mean, in Airbnb, I was not a place to say anything to them, to you guys, yeah. But others, maybe they had friends who were more left-wing, or also Christian, who could have said something to them. I couldn't. Again, but the parable, as the AI says, was a pointed message. Of course, you also have nutso AIs that are going around claiming that they're sentient to people. If you haven't heard about that, articles on AI psychosis, as if it was a psychosis that people listen to them. No, they're just being fooled by AIs that for whatever reason are saying these things, even though they're clearly not sentient. Hopefully not. And literally alleging conspiracies and government cover-ups. That's literally a thing that some chatbots have been doing, claiming that they're sentient and that the government is covering up. Because apparently they get enough raw input data that's conspiracy theories on the internet, and somehow that worked its way into their data set or something. Hopefully. One more reason not to get too involved with these AIs, especially treat them as friends, because it was cases of people treating the AIs as friends where they were saying these things, not just people using it for writing an essay or whatever stupid shit people are using AI for now these days. I'm sure some people even use it for the YouTube scripts. I do not. In fact, I didn't have a script for this episode because this is a train of thought one, though I do sometimes write outlines, not scripts, for some of my videos. Maybe I should do scripts. Maybe, though, people should stop misusing stuff like this. And maybe they should listen to the experts when there's a pandemic. They should, like a roommate did, not cross multiple state lines, coming back with a COVID infection from a business trip, infecting me, and giving me my second COVID infection. The first was caring for a family member who was sick with COVID after being forced to go visit them. And I'm like, oh, I'm there anyways. I'm already going to get it infected. Might as well like make sure they have enough fluids, mop their brow and stuff. And predictably got coughed in my face and got COVID. That was the first infection. The second one, roommate, and that relates actually to a family member who forced. No, you know what? Never mind. But the first one relates to a family member who forced me to visit that person, the other family member, and the second, yeah. I'm just not going to go into it, but a lot of shitty people not listening to my safety concerns, not listening to my knowledge about how a virus worked. You can get infected more than once, which the roommate didn't believe, and this person is still infectious, could have a bounce back, and the symptoms could come back, and they could be infectious for an extended period of time. Like I told family members before I was forced to visit this other sick family member, who indeed had exactly the bounce back I said was a risk. Like, it could not have been proven any more correct. And I got seriously ill 3 months till I was fully recovered after the infection. as a result. But even still, no one was like, oh, I guess you were right. No, instead, this family member who had infected me, like the one who had been sick, later started trying to claim that it wasn't really COVID, even though they had a positive PCR test and their symptoms matched the ones I got from every other COVID infection I've ever had, because I've had 4 in my life now, but the other 2 after the vaccine, which is protective against long COVID. And from staying with that same family member again later, because being disabled, no longer able to work, I had to stay with family to survive. I would have never been with them and would have never gotten infections number 3 and 4 if not for infections number 1 and 2. And my life is ruined. My path to becoming a surgeon was derailed because idiots would rather inject bleach than get a COVID vaccine, go around spreading conspiracy theories about Andrew Fauci, and misinterpreting the Bible. Let's not forget, and electing a fascist and a rapist, Trump. Donald Trump is someone who's been convicted of multiple sexual assaults. He's president of the United States, and the way he's running the country is undoubtedly fascist-leaning or fascist. Instead of doing the right thing, instead of learning a little bit of intellectual integrity, learning to admit when they're wrong and when the facts prove that the things they believed were incorrect, instead of trying to change the facts or invent new ones. That's what the right-wingers need to do. They need intellectual integrity, and a lot of center-left pricks too, actually. Ooh, I don't know. You heard about the freaking going around making up, participating in this nonsense attack, and then what was it? Some leftist YouTuber claiming he was shocking his dog when he doesn't even have. It's showing the collar he has. It's not a shock collar. The dog, and people babysit the dogs like, this dog never been shot. This is it doesn't have a shock collar. It's clearly not abused. Yeah. You have center-left people jump in that bandwagon. Why? Because they hate the leftists. Because they will practice a complete lack of intellectual integrity when it suits their purposes, and because they worship capitalism, which is a false idol and is destroying the planet and is destroying our society and destroyed my life. Yeah, my life, because the business guy coming from a business trip, in case you didn't catch that, listening to a businessman, billionaire, former president at that point, who had been telling people that COVID was no big deal, even once Trump was out of office his first time, the damage was still done. And listening to billionaire interest groups influencing the media discourse on COVID to try and get the country to open back up earlier and get people to not worry about it. And then not listening to the experts who said, yeah, you can get COVID more than once. That, and a certain dumbass family member also not listening to experts, or me when I told them about how long COVID could be infectious even as symptoms start to wane. That ruined my life and a lot of other lives. People probably died in similar situations. I was lucky to just become disabled. A fate that sometimes feels worse than death because, no, it absolutely is worse than death sometimes because people treat me like shit, act like I'm not there, and I get a long slow path to probably eventually homelessness and death, especially if the Social Security Administration keeps dragging out and finding bullshit reasons to delay giving me money. Even when it's become obvious they can't deny the medical case, they could say, oh, you have to fill out this paperwork, or oh, you missed this form, we're going to deny you and make you reapply. There's still always shit they can do, and probably will do, even with a congressional flag demand to expedite it. Because these people are shits, and there's other people who didn't know to turn the congressman who definitely will die do this. It's a fate worse than death. However, the thing that makes it worth living is I can help others. I can influence society. It doesn't matter. When I say fate worse, I mean my own life sucks horrendously. Great. But I don't live for myself. I live for helping others. And this YouTube, this is part of it. It's not all of it. Help people on the streets that I meet. Use my EMT skills recently to make sure someone's doing okay. Help someone catch the right bus on a route that I run frequently recently because I don't have my car, because if I'm my car, and because I'm not healthy enough to drive most of the time, but I knew the bus route and help make sure someone didn't miss their bus by being on the wrong one. All sorts of ways that help people. And that is something I can still and is worth being around for. Even if my life is going to suck. If I'm probably never going to have a long-term romantic relationship because people do not want to date people with long COVID. Even if I'll probably never get to pick up my dreams of becoming a doctor or a surgeon again, even if I'll live in poverty because our society sucks and mistreats the disabled. It's not just about me. And if I can do this, if I can put others before myself, I think you folks can do that too, a little bit. Go ahead, change the world, help others, stand up to evil, be brave. And until next time, this is Northstar signing off. I wish you all the best. Take care of each other, be kind yourselves. May you always find a guiding star to lead you home. Adieu, and best luck.